Friend of the show, Washington Post economics reporter Jeff Stein revealed that former Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin has begun hiring staff for an investment fund that is likely to raise money from sovereign wealth funds in the Persian Gulf.
During his time in the Trump administration, Mnuchin frequently traveled to the Middle East and because of the Treasury's mandate to combat terrorism financing abroad and dealt with many of the people he's now raising money from. Editor-in-chief at The Real News and host of the Working People podcast, Max Alvarez, and senior congressional correspondent at the Daily Caller, Henry Rogers, join us now to discuss. Henry, let me start with you. I heard a very big game, I'm sure as you did, from many of the Trump people when they came to Washington about draining the swamp and about how the Hillary people were corrupt, and then everyone wants to talk about Hunter, which I'm happy to do and did many times here on this show.
Right.
But then they leave the White House, and not even a month later are raised, not just from big business, from literally not just foreign money either, not talking like English money, Saudi money that they want to use in order to prop up their new investment fund. This is the definition of corruption.
Yeah, I mean, this is literally everything Trump promised to fight against.
Right.
It's just absolutely ridiculous. This is a swamp creature at its finest. When I saw this, it was no news to me. But right. This was like, this guy was traveling across the Middle East for basically, for months at a time for his 4 years as Treasury Secretary. And that alone is just so funny now that he's going to go do this. He's not even trying to hide anything.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, month later, I'm out of my position. Here I am starting this thing back. I need Saudi money. I need all this money from overseas in the Middle East. Not surprising at all. It's truly swamp rat creature. Yeah. And it's not surprising at all from someone like Steve Mnuchin.
No, it's not.
Well, and Max, it just makes you question, too. I mean, not that I ever had, a rosy view of Steve Mnuchin, but it just makes you question, all the work he was doing in the Middle East on behalf of the
right.
American people. Okay, what were you really up to there? Were you really focused on the job at hand and what your assigned duties were? Or were you focused on schmoozing so that you could turn right around immediately after leaving the administration and raise a bunch of money for your fund when, by the way, you're already so rich? Why do you have to do this?
Yeah.
I have thoughts on this. I mean, yeah, but Crystal, I think you're exactly right. It's just people should question that. And people should trust their gut on this. Trust what you are seeing and what you are thinking and what you are feeling about this, because it is as disgusting as it looks, right? This sort of revolving door through government into kind of the very sectors of the economy that the government is supposed to, regulate in some sort of way, or at least be at some sort of distance from. I mean, it happens through the military-industrial complex. It happens through the prison-industrial complex. Of course, it happens through, these international deals and investment right. funds and stuff like that. I think the one thing that I would want to kind of highlight before I kind of mention maybe after the next question, why I think Mnuchin is doing this and what it says about the role of government in the kind of global economy. But I think the thing to really stress, right, is that it's not just that Mnuchin is taking, money from foreign actors that makes this bad. The whole thing is bad. This is what the Trump administration and its swamp ghouls and creatures were doing, was they were using the levers of government, the connections that their governmental positions provided to increase their own wealth and to increase their power. This is this is what we saw in sectors across the economy, not just in what Mnuchin is focusing on with this investment firm. It happened with oil companies.
Yes.
It happened with other investment firms. I mean, the government under Trump, but not only under Trump. Well, under Trump, it was just so blatantly in the open. Biden's people do this too, but I think Trump's people are very just shameless about it and don't feel the need to hide it. Their governmental positions were being used to enhance their own wealth and to increase the power of the ruling class at all of our collective expense. We are the ones who pay for this.
That's right. And, Henry, that's actually what makes me so mad about this, which is that, I hear from people, what about Hunter Biden? We talk about Hunter Biden plenty on this show, right, all the time. But you do not have a scrap of credibility if you're going to talk about Hunter Biden and Biden Inc., and all of which is legitimate and outrageous. Or same with the Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, and all the money that he's taken from defense contractors and big business to do business in China. if you're going to not say a word when the former Treasury Secretary, who had immense dealings with the Saudis while in office, turns around and is going to take their money, possibly to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. And the best part, Henry, is the firm is not based in New York or LA. It's based right here in Washington, D.C., which goes to show you exactly who he's dealing with. When you're dealing with sovereign wealth funds, you're dealing with other countries, not with even individual money managers.
No, and that's what, to Crystal's point, I mean, exactly right. Like, what was he doing in office? Like, was he planning these things in advance?
Yeah.
Who knows? He was in all of these countries where he's now doing business with it. And like Max said, it was in plain view. No one's trying to hide anything here. It's literally, he's left the Treasury like a month ago. And now here he is starting this fund in Washington, D.C. so he can, stay at his mansion with his wife over there and live the lavish life in D.C. and be a swamp creature. And this is everything the Trump administration was supposed to be against. I think it's outrageous. And to see this happening, it's sad to see, I will say. It's really sad to see, but it's not surprising with someone like Steve Mnuchin.
And Max, you're right to point out, like, the Trump people are extra shameless about it. They go that extra corruption mile, really working overtime in that direction. But part of why this doesn't get a lot of attention, part of why Democrats were so ineffective at ever making this case against Donald Trump is, we had Congressman Ted Lieu here on the show asking about some of Hunter's, not the conspiracy theory parts, but the actual legit trading on the name, soft corruption of Hunter Biden. And he says this is just what people do. They sit on boards and they earn money. So hard to call out the corruption of the other side when you are also yourself implicated. And oh, by the way, right now Democrats are busy going to the mat to try to get Neera Tanden through, whose organization has taken money from some of these same countries, by the way.
Yeah. Scrutiny Neera Tanden. Neera Tanden's awful. I mean, I just had to say that. But you want to talk about swamp creatures? Neera Tanden is absolutely one. Joe Biden this time last year, was telling Wall Street nothing will change under my administration, right? That was leaked, and Biden administration didn't really feel all that much pressure to kind of backtrack on that. They're in direct communication with Wall Street. They're in direct communication with the kind of powers that be in the worlds of finance, capital, and yada, yada, yada. It is very clear who the ruling class and, their operatives in government are serving, who the people in government are serving, and it is the ruling class. And I guess the point that I wanted to really make is that, I think this gives us a perfect, test case for understanding what the term neoliberalism actually means or actually meant.
Yes.
Right? Because the term gets thrown around a lot. I know a lot of folks who aren't kind of super online or super invested in these debates, maybe don't know what the heck we're talking about when we throw around the term. But I think most people have a baseline understanding that neoliberalism has been the kind of historical process by which market logics have infiltrated the prerogatives of government so that government kind of incorporates those and implements policy that follows kind of a market-friendly logic, yada, yada, yada. But neoliberalism is also the ceding of government to the market itself. I really try to emphasize this when I talk to other workers, and honestly, working people know this better than anybody. Mm-hmm. The market is a more effective form of government than what we call government, right? The decisions your boss makes, the investments that are made over our heads that cause, businesses to fold or rearrange, or factories to up and move to other countries, that has more impact over your life than a lot of policy that happens in DC, but we don't call it government. But what someone like Steve Mnuchin is doing is he's showing that actually there is a perfect synergy there between what happens in government and what happens in the market, so that power of governance over the ways we live our lives, over how much wealth we have, over the state of the environment, over all the things that shape our lives on this planet, those functions are ceded by government to the market that has no democratic accountability whatsoever.
Really well said, Max. Really well said. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
And we'll have more Rising for you after this.